Hello, welcome, guys. Thank you for joining. We'll give everybody maybe 5 more minutes to trickle in. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. So we'll start in maybe a few more minutes. Let's see if anybody else trickles in. Okay. Welcome. Thank you guys for joining us for our child development workshop. Today, your presenters are myself, Lucy Zaragoza, the preschool social worker, as well as Kathleen Molina, who is the supervisor of early childhood and the community parent involvement specialist. So some topics that we'll touch base on today are child development, teaching strategies, and parenting. So we'll begin with child development. Okay, when you see this picture, what does this photo make you think? I know there's a lot going on in this picture. You can see something as simply as just a child playing with a car in a puddle, but there's so much more to it. There's exploring going on, experimenting and discovering, is the car gonna float? Is it gonna sink? Will water get inside the car? What's happening? This is the same thing with child development. There's so much more than just playing in the puddle, and we'll touch base on that. Okay, to begin off, we'll start with milestone. How your child plays, learns, and acts and moves offers important key clues about your child's development. For example, oh, I think we have somebody here. Oh, I saw something. I'm sorry, guys. Oh,
Oh, it's okay. I thought Reggie Ann raised her hand.
I thought so, right? I heard something. How are you? Maybe she sent us a chat. Okay, back to milestones. In our program, we are key on the social emotional aspects in milestones. For example, in age 3, hi. In age 3, children start noticing other children and join them alongside them to play with them. In age 4, that's when pretend play begins and social emotional comfort takes part. If they see their friend crying, they can possibly go and give them a hug if they're hurt. And in our program, that's our main aspect that we love to touch base on. Our teachers, we have Miss Kate here, is great at teaching social emotional cues, building friendships. And these are some of the milestones that we see in our children of age 3 and 4. Okay, we'll touch base on pyramid model. Pyramid model. This is our Bogota preschool program-wide expectation, which we have in Spanish and English. You can see these throughout the school and in our classroom, which is we are safe, we are kind, and we are learners. We implement that every day here in our preschool program. But what is pyramid model? Pyramid model is our preschool-wide. It's okay. Thank you. Pyramid model is what our preschool program uses to enhance social and emotional development. Our teachers use this framework, and we also encourage our families to do as well. As you see, it's pretty simple. We want all children to be safe and kind and learners. And this is what our preschool program really holds the foundation to be. And we'll move on to teaching strategies, which is our creative curriculum. And Kathleen will take over.
Hey, Lucy, would you mind actually going back to that pyramid model slide really
Yeah,
quick?
of course.
So the pyramid model is so important. When we first started using it, it was really intended to get ahead of some of those challenging behaviors in the classroom. And what I've learned since then is that it's not a tool that's meant for children. It's really geared toward the adults. It's an adult-focused model, so that when there is an issue in the classroom, it's not necessarily that the child is giving everyone a hard time. It's that the adult is having a hard time with the child's behaviors. And so it's designed so that we can give the adults coaching and training in different ways that we can look at, you know, what do the routines look like. So this pyramid, you know, the foundation has to be strong, and that comes with that effective workforce, which means that, you know, we need our folks to be trained. We need that support system, that coaching for our teaching staff. And then there's those nurturing and responsive relationships, which starts with the teacher and the child, of course. And then beyond that, it's the teacher and the family. It's the family and the school and the administration and social worker, all that stuff. So those things are really important. And also that high quality supportive environment, right? You can have these wonderful relationships, but if the quality of learning isn't there, that isn't going to help to build that strong foundation. As you get higher up on the pyramid, so basically those bottom 3 levels are what all children deserve, and what all the classrooms, that's the foundation that we try to build. Some children need a little bit more targeted supports, and so then they might sit down, the teacher with the family, with the coach, and say, okay, this child is having a tough time with transitions, let's say. You know, what can we do to you know, adjust the schedule or make some accommodations for them? And that's where you get those targeted social emotional supports. And maybe if some of you have seen like an individual schedule where they'll take pictures of the child doing things during the day as a visual reminder. And then at the top, very top of the pyramid, is those intensive interventions. We're talking serious, really distressing kind of behaviors where it really interferes with the learning that's going on throughout the day with that student, with the people around, and maybe families having a hard time too. And that gets really intense, and we really don't see that very often. So yeah, so that's a little bit about pyramid. It's really extensive, and we've been working with the pyramid model for the last 6 years through a partnership with Montclair State University. So yeah, that's just a brief overview. And our program-wide expectations are intended for everyone that's involved in this program, right? Safety comes first. That kindness piece comes in too, right? It's meant not just for the children to use with each other, but for adults to use with children and for adults to use with one another as well. And those were identified through a year-long process, actually, where we surveyed families last year, the year before, families, teaching staff, everyone, and then kind of with the teaching staff, we narrowed it down to these 3 key areas that we wanted to focus on, and we're all in agreement that those are the 3 most important things that we want to teach the children. And that's it. If you have more questions about pyramid model, please reach out. And, you know, I want to say thank you for being here. I'm really glad that we didn't try to do this in person because it's dark and rainy out there. But we appreciate you taking the time to be with us tonight. And it doesn't have to be super formal. We have these slides, but if there's anything that you want to add or ask, please just chime in. You can just unmute and go ahead and ask us. All right. So the state requires that the district choose a research-based quality curriculum model. And I think there's like 4 options. Pagoda chose creative curriculum. It's an excellent curriculum that's based on studies. So we, instead of, you know, back in the day, there used to be themes, right? We're learning about apples in daycare, but that really doesn't get to a deeper level of understanding. And so these study topics are simple, but within them, the teachers are able to really get down to all these different levels of objectives for development and learning. And the creative curriculum provides all these different lesson plans and activities that are specific to learn these strategies within a study topic that is familiar. So for example, in the beginning, it's getting to know our children and families. Kate, can I put you on the spot for a second? If you want to just kind of tell everybody a little bit about what they're looking at right now.
Okay. What are we? Do you just want me to talk about what that is? It's the way, or the first 6 weeks.
Sure, the first 6 weeks.
Okay. Well, the first 6 weeks is getting to know everyone, all the students, all the classrooms, and all the families. So this is what we do: an All About Me poster and a family picture, so we can get in the kids, because they're most comfortable, I feel, talking about themselves and like to share things about themselves. So this is a really good way to get the year started and to get the foundation of those relationships with the families and the children, because they're used to being, you know, like the number one little person in their house. So we want them to share that and be like the, you know, to know how important they are in the classroom, so they get to share things about themselves. And it's a good way to build that relationship. So these are their posters, and we normally do it like in a show and tell kind of thing, and they get to talk about it, and they're displayed throughout the classroom for, I guess, throughout the 6 weeks and sometimes a little longer. And it's a good way to bring that connection from home and school.
Thank you, Kate.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Yeah, so during those first 6 weeks, they also talk about they focus on expectations and routines in the classroom, building those relationships and engaging with families. And of course, it's kind of like a child learns about letters first through the first initial of their name, right? That's the most important letter to them. So when they're learning about letters in their own name, then it leads to more and more learning. Same with this. So they bring in their information about themselves and get to share with everyone and really start to build that community. And once they have that established base for learning, then we would move on to, we have another example of a study topic, and it's buildings. So buildings on the surface seems very simple, but there's rhyming, there's building, there's drawing, there's, teachers will take a walk around the neighborhood and take pictures of different kinds of buildings. They'll build in the block area. They'll use found objects in the art area to build buildings of their own. They'll talk about the features of a building. And so we are able to meet all the objectives for development and learning, which I'll talk about in a second, but within a topic that is familiar to children. It's really easily relatable. Some other study topics include balls, which is super fun and easily relatable. What else? Balls, clothing, simple machines. Trees, there you go.
Music.
You're the pro. Thank you. Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so it starts with a topic that is very familiar and easily relatable. And so once we are able to make those connections with the children, then the teacher's able to dive a little bit deeper in developing those objectives. We can move on, I think, to our gold. Oh, wait, we're not there yet. Well, these two things are connected, and they're both from teaching strategies. So in each of these study units, the teachers aim to meet the 38 objectives for development and learning. This is just the first slide. There's another slide. So when you see children at play in school, very often people are, I would invite you to really see it for what it is, not just on the surface as children are playing, but to see that all these different skills are being developed while they're playing, from social emotional to physical development, language literacy, cognitive skills. We've got our, what else? Math, science, technology, the arts, social studies, and English language acquisition for our English language learners. It's a lot, and our teachers work really hard to develop themselves professionally annually, so that they're up and aware, up on recent developments and recent research, and that they're able to really hone in and develop different lessons and activities that will help to support these different objectives for learning. And then just to segue right into teaching strategies, GOLD is the name of the assessment. So these two things are connected. It's not, they're not in isolation from one another. So using those objectives for development and learning, and there's 38 of them, but within each area, it gets even more detailed. I feel like it's 60 something, right, Kate? So our teachers are doing a lot of work. Even when they're laughing and playing and coloring and cooking food in the dramatic play area, they really have all of these objectives in the back of their minds, and they're trying to help the children grow from one level to another. Now, when I say levels, here are some examples of our some of the different areas for development and learning. So the first one is under the cognitive domain, and it's thinking symbolically. So the numbers at the top are the numbers of the levels. They don't necessarily coincide with the age. So I don't want you to get confused there. Excuse me. But I want you to pay attention to the colors. So the green band represents widely held expectations, meaning that most 3-year-olds, and not all of them, but the majority of 3-year-olds will be in this range from a 3 to a 4. And that means they'll be somewhere, they can either be right between. So on the 3 level, they're right between a 2 and a 4. So they might be recognizing people, objects, animals, or pictures, but they might also be at drawing or constructing. And And then, so the blue line is where most 4-year-olds will land. Now, child, just one second, Jenny, if your child is, let's say they're 4, right? Pre-K 4, they're supposed to be in the blue band, but they're actually at a level 3. They could possibly be at a level 3, and that's okay. This isn't a test, and it's not a matter of did they make it or not. It's where are they right now? We're assessing where they are developmentally, so that then the teacher can make a plan to help them get to the level of widely held expectations. They might also be at a 7, so maybe the teacher won't push as much in that area because they've got 38 areas to focus on. Yes. All right, let's go with Jenny first because she was first.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I have a quick question. My
Sure.
question is, for the assessment purposes.
Yes.
Now, how do you assess upon this? Like, how would you assess? Now, now for me, I actually have done creative curriculum for many years, and you actually, if you're doing creative curriculum correctly, you usually have certain amount of teachers in each center, and they are there with clipboards and they're watching and assessing. Now, is this happening in each classroom? I'm assuming not, because there's not enough staff. So how can you properly run creative curriculum? This is my question.
Yeah, so we're working towards fidelity, and with our coach and with our training and using the fidelity tool, we are getting there, right? We're always constantly growing and learning. When it comes to gold, believe it or not, they are able to do this. Kate's been successful in doing this for very many years. All the teachers are, and they work with their teacher aide in the classroom who also gets trained, who also gets some coaching, and they take notes together. They can take their observation notes for assessment purposes throughout the day. And so
Now, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but can the parents see these notes? Because I know in my school, we have to show documentation. So if I came into the classroom and I said, I want to see what my son earned and if he, is where he's supposed to be for assessment purposes, am I allowed to see these documents?
absolutely.
Sure. Okay.
And you should have gotten a report card.
Yes. And
yeah.
the report card I felt was very vague. I think we need more bullets so that we know specifically what their challenges are and, if they actually have, mastered,
Right.
these things. Because on some things I know that my son has mastered, and other things it's very vague. So underneath that topic, there's, other bullets and other, I guess sections I could say where maybe he hasn't. And that's why he's only, getting emerging in that, or, you know what I'm saying? I feel like it needs to be a little tweaked. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, and the report card is generated through teaching strategies. So I agree with you that it can be a little vague. There are different kinds of reports that can be generated, but they tend to be very extensive because we're covering so many areas. But if you want to know more specifically about your child, then you are absolutely privy to that information. And there's something called a child profile sheet. Child profile report. Is that what it is, Kate?
I think it's like individual child report or something. Yeah.
Individual child report. So then you'll be able to see each of the areas, right? All of the objectives, and it actually shades it. If the child is your son 3 or 4?
My son's 5, actually.
Oh, he's 5. So he's a pre-K 4 then. So he would be in the blue range. And so what it will do is show you the blue shaded area, and then whatever objectives the teacher has inputted and leveled, you'll see an actual visual representation of, are they
Like
before
like
the blue, within the blue, or beyond the blue?
But in certain areas, I feel that my son has mastered some, and because I feel like 3, 4, and 5s they're all different. Like everybody's on a different level, which is creative curriculum. We know that. But I feel like in certain areas, when I had some issues, I was told that it's emerging. And I feel that my son is not emerging. He's not with the other kids because he's 5. And in that area, I feel he has mastered some things. And I was told that that area is just emerging for everyone. And I don't understand how that's possible, because to me, every child's on different levels, and they're all individuals.
Yeah, no, so I want you to remember that it's not a judgment of your
Oh
of
no, I know
any
it's
child,
not.
obviously.
Absolutely, I know it's not. But when I know my son knows something, and
Yeah.
it's not showing me that, and it's saying that it's emerging. I mean, I know as a teacher, we all know you have to show, growth and progress. And sometimes growth and progress, goes on, but sometimes kids are coming into the program. Of course, like my son, who's a little bit older. I mean, there are some issues, that he has, and I'm not saying he's perfect, because he absolutely isn't. But on some of these, topics, I know for sure, like I said, I work with him on it because I know the inside of it, and I know he's mastered them. And, it just, for it to put emerging on that, that's not okay for me. So I want to know if there's another way, that we can, maybe go back and, not for me specifically. I mean, that's already done. I'm saying, but in the future, instead of just putting emerging on certain areas, maybe just, you know, change that up a little and individually check each child if they really do know that.
So they are actually checking each individual child. I will tell you this, I do think that this calls for a meeting with you and the teacher and the coach or me or whomever you want to, so you can ask all these questions and we can go through your son's child profile sheet individually so that you can see exactly where he falls into widely held expectations and where, and then we can talk about what you believe to be emerging or not or meeting. So, and I want you to remember something too. It's not definitive, right? A child in the 4th grade can study all night, but get a 70 on a test. It doesn't mean that they don't know it. It means that that day in that moment with that tool, they were able to show only a certain percentage, right? When they go home, they may know all of it. Yes.
But for me as a teacher, I'm checking monthly, I'm checking daily. I want to know what they know. And if they don't know it, then I'm teaching them that. Like, so
Right.
why is, like, I hope that that's happening. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, just because they didn't know it the first time doesn't mean in a week or two, again, like you just said, sometimes they're having a bad day. Sometimes they didn't sleep. I hope that they are reassessed. And I want to see that progress. I want to see that's reassessed. I don't want to see that, I'm not saying my teacher because, she's a good teacher. I'm just saying some teachers seem to put, emerging or progressing because they want to show growth within the child. But if the child already mastered it, then they just mastered it. That's just how it is.
You know what? I feel like you might be referring to that the teacher wants to be able to show the child was emerging and
Yes.
they got them to meeting or, proficient at something. I really would hate to believe that our teachers are doing that because we really emphasize that this is not a test. It's assessing where they are developmentally right now. And then with that information that gets plugged into Gold, into this online system, then it puts them into these different groups for each objective so that during the day, the teacher knows I'm going to do this small group activity. This is the objective that I'm focusing. And this is where each of these children are. And it also gives the steps of how can I support this child to get them to the next level. Now, if you're talking something like writing your name, right? One
Yes,
day it might be scribbles and one day it might resemble letters. Or maybe at home you're practicing it all the time and you have it all over your refrigerator and it looks like a name, but in school the child wants to color instead. I think it's important that you're in communication with your teachers and that if you have that evidence, because this is evidence-based, and you want to share it with the teacher, there's no reason why the teacher can't input that. Parent input is fantastic. You know these children better than we do. And so the teacher should be receptive to that. Absolutely. And in terms of, so there are so many objectives, right? There's 38 objectives and then all those subsets beneath them. Right now we have three cycles, assessment cycles. So at a minimum, each of these objectives is being assessed at least 3 times a year. So you will get additional additional report cards. Um, And what I'm saying is that where your child is when the teacher assesses them in one objective, like writing skills in September, is not going to be the same as where they are in December or even June. And that's why we do it at least 3 times a year. When we tell the teacher, if a teacher takes documentation that day, maybe the teacher is not having a great day, and the child is really low, maybe at a 2 or a 1 for demonstrating emerging writing skills, we do ask them to go back. So I will monitor as their supervisor the quantity and making sure that they're getting the work done. But then their coach will monitor the quality of it and go back in and take a look at it and say, hey, you know what? I noticed that this child is really on level with most areas, but in this one area, he's really low. Is this really representative of who your child is, or should we go back and take another look? So those conversations are happening. And we're working on getting better and better with it, so then we can use the data to inform the teaching and the lesson plans.
Okay.
Is that helpful? But I do think you should follow up, Jenny, with the teachers so that, and you can reach out to me tomorrow, or I'll reach out to you so we can take a look at your son's child profile sheet. And anybody that's on here is privy to that information. These are your children. And the more support we get from you at home and information, the better the picture of the child is.
Now, since every kid's on a different level, now, do they take those assessments and say, okay, like, say they don't know rhyming, right? Do they work with them in small group on that? Is that like so that they can actually get better at it? I mean, is that what these teachers are doing? I hope that that's what they're doing.
Can I chime in really quick?
Yeah, sure.
So like with like what you were saying, like with the small groups. So like that is part of like initially when we first figure out small groups to do things, I mean how I do it. Sometimes I'll base it like if I don't know them, I'll base it on say age, or at first, and like I'll do small groups like just like a general small group to see, and then you see how they work together, where they are, and different ways, and then we start moving it around. So like I say, if there is a group that like a few children that are having trouble with rhyming, like I'll put maybe one who maybe is higher in that level.
Who knows? Right.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure we all do that, like kind of move it around to like based on like the groups will change based on the objective and based on this, it'll change they change very frequently just based on like the information, like trying to get them to where we want them to be. We might have one that's like a more of a model, or we might have all of them that are on the same level that may not be able to do any rhyming. And the first day is just getting them to repeat the rhyme with us, because that's like the the beginning of where it starts on the objective. So like that'll be something that we work on maybe one day. Then maybe on later in the week we'll switch it up and put the ones who know it with the ones who just learned how to say it, and they can like watch the next one. So it does vary, and we'll keep changing. So we do that. Sorry, I have a 2-year-old who's screaming.
Thank you, Miss Kate. Because that's what I would do. But I'm just figuring out if that's what everyone's doing it. Okay. Thanks, Miss Kate.
Yeah.
Because I just want to make sure if he doesn't know something, then he's going to learn it. And that later on, he could be reassessed, then he'll, know it.
Yeah, and then the beginning, a lot of it in the very beginning is more of like a baseline of what, and you have to remember, this too, because you're with the kids all the time, that in the beginning, there may not be showing who they really are in any areas in the beginning. Like the first small group, sometimes you might not even have a kid who wants to sit, so they're, they may not be sitting at school, but they go home and they could do a whole, like a whole thing, but at school, they're not doing that. So we're going based on what we see, what we're seeing at school, and then as they
because some kids are shy and they're not comfortable, which is why we usually play in the beginning for like 3 weeks, because we have to pair with them so they learn to trust us and know that we're safe. Exactly.
We do. So we do that, even though I don't see Clay as being shy.
I don't either, but Miss Fran said he didn't know how to rhyme, and I'm like, he's been rhyming since.
Yeah, but he's the type that, sometimes has to open up. Like, sometimes, hi.
You're right.
So he might not have, like in the beginning, he might have been sat there quiet and rhymed, but then like in 3 days, he might be reciting the whole thing, like, so it's based, like you know how, you know.
Exactly, but that's why I was worried. I'm like, how does
No,
he
no,
not
no,
know
we're
this?
do-
I'm like, he's
we're
been doing
doing
this
that.
since he was 3 years old with nursery
No.
rhymes and everything. And
No,
singing.
yeah, but that's why at school and home is so different. But there is an
Yes.
option on Gold to put documentation in that was shared from a family member as well.
Okay. Yeah, that's
So
that's what the director
yeah,
Angela.
so
Yeah.
you could do that too. I'm sorry. I'm talking to someone else. Sorry.
Aw.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Kate.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny. Let's follow up so we can look closer at that together.
Okay.
And I want to give.
I mean,
Fidel-
I'm not upset with his education. I mean, I love it. I mean, you guys are doing great. I don't have an issue. It's just when I know he knows something, I'm like, what can I do? Like, can he get reassessed? Like, I mean, I know you can't reassess every kid, but I'm like, is there some like, and I'm like, is he going to be taught it again? You know, I just want to know if he's going to learn it again. You know, I'm like, because then I'll sit at home with him and drill him. Let's go, Clay. Rhyming words. Let's go.
Yes, no, and he will be reassessed, and they all get reassessed. And there are lessons that are can be retaught throughout the year. Maybe not the exact same lesson, sometimes the same lesson, but sometimes it's a lesson taught within different studies that meets the same objective, but it's proposed in a different way. And we all know we're not picking something up one and done. You can't just
Right.
teach it. And
No,
that's it.
exactly.
So there
Exactly.
certainly has to be follow-up and reinforcement. And I don't want them to learn. I don't want them to, memorize the answers for the test. Basically, we don't
Right.
want that either. We want it.
Well,
to
because we
be
want them to know the
developed.
knowledge, right, behind
Yes,
it. Exactly. We
And-
don't want them
and
to memorize it.
those
And
skills
everything's a
transferable.
foundation. Everything's a foundation. It leads
Right.
up to another study. I understand. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Thanks. Let's hear from Finelli. Thank you for waiting.
Well, it's not Finelli. It's actually her husband, Robert. So
Hi.
I can't replace that beautiful lady. But I don't want to misquote what this is called because the slide you changed it from page 1 to 2. But I think this is awesome. Just kind of to piggyback off the last yes, developing and learning for preschoolers. So
Yes.
I'm looking at it like this in the sense of if this is assessed at the beginning, and then I'm assuming we get the report card and then a progress report, can this be sent or requested, like let's say monthly from the parents? So then at that point, or from the requested by a parent to the teacher to be able to get this. So then kind of to the last parent's point, kind of that helps us hit benchmarks between every month based upon quarterly or progress report card. So then the parents can kind of have a better understanding how we can work together. Because to kind of the last parent's point, if my child went through this assessment at the beginning of the month when they first started, so when we got a report card and a progress report, maybe on that progress report, we can see the transition to them improving. Is that feasible?
Absolutely. I was just writing down some notes. So I would say the same thing. It would be it's really great visual to see the individual profile sheet or profile report, because you can see where the child lies, right? So the teachers have typically 3 months. The school year is 10 months, so it's about 3-ish months for each assessment period. So that's how much time that they need so that they can cover all of these areas. So you may ask for a report, let's say, they just had a checkpoint, finalize the checkpoint, which means they close out that cycle and you get the report card, and then they start again for the second round of assessing all these same objectives again. It's just in the middle of the year versus what they got in the beginning of the year. So you will see the updates there. So right now, because it's only been less than a week since I think the checkpoint period closed, if we printed your child's profile sheet, it wouldn't have a ton of data on it right now because it's within this assessment period. I don't know if that makes sense. But if you give it time in January, the teacher will have collected about a third of the observations for a third of the objectives for that cycle.
That makes sense. But my question, I guess, would be then, I mean, it's December. Could we have gotten this in either late October or early November to be able to prep to get prepared for that second assessment. Because again, like everybody's saying, what happened with the child at the beginning is not necessarily at the end. And again, I only reason I'm saying this is because I'm hoping that we get a little bit more parent engagement. Unfortunately, there was a bunch of emails sent about this, and there's only 10 parents. I mean, no offense, I don't think that's enough, and I don't blame any of you ladies. I appreciate it. But I mean, if some of this stuff is sent out, maybe that'll help open up questions to some of the parents that are not as engaged as some of the parents are on the call. Because I want to say me and my wife are pretty engaged, and this is the first time I see this, and I think this is awesome.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing
Yes,
that.
thank you for your input. Yes.
And I do want to add that there is a link for a fully Spanish session that's going on right now. So we have hopefully another 10 parents there. It's not as many as we'd like, but you know, it starts here. It starts with the folks that are interested and that are asking the questions. I'm really glad that you're all engaging. It's important that we talk about these things because it's, you know, the folks that see preschool as or early childhood learning as cute, adorable, and cookie cutter. It's really overlooking and undermining all of this work that our staff is doing, and all this development that's taking place. I do want to remind you that, and I know I sound like a broken record, but it's not a test. It's not that we want to meet them where they are and then help them grow to the next level with the right supports, with the right lessons and activities and things that we can do in school to support them. But not all kids, that's why it's widely held expectations, right? So you may have a 4-year-old who is still in kind of the green band, hasn't really gotten to the blue yet, and that's okay because maybe they're not ready in that area. It really depends on the area. There's all these different levels. Something like demonstrating emergent writing skills, right? So you could have a 4-year-old who's at a level 3, mock letters or letter-like forms, and you could have a 4-year-old right next to them who's writing their name fully. And it doesn't mean that the 4-year-old next to them is more accomplished. It just means that developmentally, that's where they are now. And eventually this other child will get there. And there are other things involved, right? There's fine motor development because they have to have those muscles in their hands in order to be able to hold a pencil correctly. And before that fine motor development, it starts big. You got to start with the gross motor development, meaning they got to be outside and running and jumping and climbing and using all these gross motor skills, because once they master those, then they're able to get smaller to those fine motor skills. That's why a child might start holding a crayon with their fist, and then because that's their gross motor, they're using their whole hand to do it. And eventually, as they develop those smaller muscles in their fingers, they're able to really focus on how can I hold this so that I can produce the letters that look more like letters. Does that make sense? I do think it's important to have parent input. I do think we have so much information that we can share with you, but there's only so many days in the week and so much time in the school year that we don't necessarily get to sit down and go through every bit of this. But I rest assured that the teaching staff is diving right in and constantly thinking about all these different objectives when they're going throughout their day, even if it seems on the surface like a simple activity. And if you're interested in learning more about it, then we can look at their individual profile sheets. To do it on a monthly basis, we can look into that. We can look into what the progress reports are. I know that's another report that Gold can generate. Yeah. Does that help answer your question, Robert?
It does.
Oh, hi, Finelli.
Hello.
Okay. Thank you for that. And I think we have Yvette. Yvette, did you have something to add?
Hi, how you doing, Kathleen? This is Raina Zion's mom. Sorry, that's my middle name.
Oh, okay. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. What's up?
So, my question is, Zion's first language is not English.
Yep.
It's Spanish, and I did ask his teacher. She said, sometimes the principal had come in to assist while he was being evaluated.
Mhm.
My only concern is that the principal really is not his teacher. So, children tend to act different in front of other human beings. And while he loved his teacher, not that he has anything against anyone else, he would feel more comfortable being his normal self around her versus not a stranger, but someone who's not in the room as much.
Right.
So that was my concern. And now that you hired this lovely lady that does speak Spanish, and I love her to death, I feel like it would be more beneficial for her to do it with him because he trusts her. So I know they were saying maybe let's just say like a small thing. Oh, he counts to 10, but with me he counts to 16. So I know you said they're not being graded, but when I got a report card, I'm like, he's 3. What kind of report card he's getting? That was my first thought, but I did read all the comments. But now that thank God I actually logged into the meeting, that I'm listening to you guys explain and having conversations with us to explain further so that we understand what's really happening. I just wanted to point that out that not just for Zion, but I know there's other children in the class that their primary language is also Spanish. I think it's more beneficial to revisit that now that we have someone that can kind of understand the kids more and that they'll feel comfortable with being who they normally are around.
Thank you for that, Raina. Yeah, your son is in a class where there's a higher population of English language learners, and there is an area of objectives that are specific to that in terms of English language acquisition, but really they're also assessing in all these other areas. I think that the aide that's working with him now, I think he's responding very well to her. I think she's doing great. And I think it's a good idea for us to take a look at some of this data in Spanish, right? So I know that the aide is also an English language learner, but teaching strategies, I believe, and Kate, correct me if I'm wrong, can produce some of these documents in Spanish. So we have the book with all the objectives for development and learning can be printed out in Spanish. And the small group lessons, I believe, can be printed out in Spanish as well. So now that we've had this aide here for a little bit of time now, then I can talk to Alex tomorrow, who's the coach, who will be able to print some of those things and sit down and work with Christina so that she can start to really take a look at Zion's levels and assess to see if they're accurate or not. Because I think you're right, in his home language, he's obviously going to be more comfortable and he'll be a little bit more himself. So I was just taking notes, and I'm going to have Alex follow up with the teacher and the aide and make sure that we're getting them those supports so that they can accurately assess Zion exactly where he is, and not just him. You're right. All those kids in that class, in every class.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for educating us as well. Thank you. I really appreciate
Dana.
you all.
Thank you, and thank you for being here.
I just wanted, before it's on my head and I keep forgetting, I don't want to not forget it. The teachers can also, if anyone with certain objectives that they feel like they want to work at home with them, we can also like print at home activities that connects what we're doing at school to something that you can do at home. So, and that also we can do in English and Spanish as well. That's one thing, really good thing about Gold. It has a lot, translate the most of the stuff on that's available to us. So if that's something that you want, just let your teachers know too, like that you would like some at-home activities printed, and they will be able to give you some home activities. And there are things that you can work. It's not like you have to go out, like, we don't, it's not like dittos. It's not stuff, little stuff that you have and stuff that you can do. If there's certain, and they're geared to certain objectives that you can see from the report card that maybe you want to work on that at home with them. So that's something too, in case you're interested in that.
Thank you, Kate. Thanks for adding that in. I'm really glad that we have spent all this time on it. These workshops, these meetings are so much more worthwhile when we can engage in this back and forth
Yes.
conversation about these things versus just reading off slides. I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that you care. I mean, not to say that other people don't, but it makes the workshop when we're here together. Otherwise, it'd be me and Lucy and Kate just talking to each other. Okay, so we looked at cognitive is this top one, writing skills is this bottom one, and if we go to the next slide, just to take a look again, if you look at this green band, your child could be, just beyond scribbles and marks, or they could be writing letter strings right now. And that's okay, regardless of where they are. It's a way for the teacher to take a kind of a snapshot of where they are right now and say, okay, they're at a 2 right now. So now I'm going to work with them, whether it's at small group time or during choice time, when they're out in their individual centers and writing. So the teacher will know, right? This child is making scribbles, but we want to try and get them toward letters. So if they're playing, let's say in the dramatic play area, they might go over and ask them to, write a recipe, or can you sign your name here? Can you sign the check for the bill? Or can you take my order? I'm going to order at a restaurant. So they're engaging in these different activities where they're inviting the children to practice the skill, but within a natural environment where the child is enjoying themselves and playing, and also able to practice those skills at the same time. And so looking at counting too, these are some of the areas that people seem most concerned about, because we can assess them very easily, right? Verbally counting. It's not just counting though. If you look at, let's say, the 4 level in the green range, right? Raina, I think you just mentioned like he can count to 10, but with you, he counts to 16. But if you look at this more specifically, so it's not just verbally counting to 10, it's also counting objects accurately, right? We may know, and I'm not talking about Zion specifically, but some children may know the entire alphabet, or they can count to 100, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're counting objects or making that connection between the number and the quantity of items that they have in front of them. So there are different levels to it. And once they kind of master that, then you can move on to push them to go to count, verbally counting up to 20, but also being able to count those 10 to 20 objects, because once they're able to do that, that they're understanding the number, one number represents each item. So these are some of the areas I didn't want to get. I think we're pretty good in this area. If we want to move on to the parenting section, unless anybody has any questions or wants to discuss this further. All right, over to you, Lucy.
Okay. When you look at this picture, what exactly does it make you feel? We can get some input, or if not, you could feel like you're just on a roller coaster. And when you are on a roller coaster, you can have ups and downs, but you aren't alone when it comes to the topic of parenting. As you can see, we're all here. And yeah, you're not alone when it comes to feeling this way. So we'll move on to the next slide. Okay, to model healthy behavior. How can we get our kids to try new food? By modeling this type of behavior. And you can do this by encouraging kids to try new foods, by involving them when it comes to shopping. Oh, let's get something in a particular color. What are you interested in? Fruits and vegetables are great, because then the children could be hands-on, getting them involved. Washing the produce can help them want to try this new fruit or vegetable. And something that we definitely always encourage is offer choices. As an adult, we love choices. Imagine our preschoolers. So give them the option. Would you rather have an apple or a pear? They also want to be in control on what they are eating. So we'll go to why routines matter. So to begin with, who doesn't love a routine? I love a routine. I stick onto my routine. But for our preschoolers, it creates a sense of safety and security. They let us know what will happen next, and they tell us when to exactly expect something. as well as research shows that having a regular routine at home can really help support your child's social and emotional development. When children at home feel that consistent routine, they build self-regulation skills that is the foundation to good mental health. Other important routines are mealtime, bedtime, I know we've previously talked about, and as well as getting ready for school. When it comes to getting ready for school, keeping it simple and leaving home with enough time is very important. I think we are on our last slide. Thank you guys for joining us and giving us input. As Kathleen said, having those conversations with us helps us reflect on how we can better improve the program and how we can help you guys as well as our families. We have our resource page. Great community resources is the Bogota Library, as many of you guys know. Of course, the Bogota Recreation Center, and we also linked the CDC developmental milestones, which I'll share with you guys the presentation. When it comes to questions, your teacher is your #1 support. Please have open communication with them, as well as your pediatrician, your school nurse. You guys have met myself, Kathleen, we're here, as well as Alexandra, as Kathleen mentioned. She's currently doing the Spanish workshop. So thank you so much. If you guys have any questions, please let us know. We're here.
Thank you,
Yes, I
guys.
just want to, yeah, thanks. I wanted to echo what Lucy said, and we'll hang out for a couple of minutes if you're done for the night. We hope that you enjoy the rest of your evening and have a happy holiday if we don't see you.
Yes.
Otherwise, we'll hang around for a couple minutes if anybody wants to ask any questions.
Yes, happy holidays. Thank you so much for joining us.
I want to ask you guys a quick question. Is creative curriculum, I know that I had the books, but are they easily accessible online?
We pay for a subscription.
I know, but I'm saying like certain things, you can find them online, right? I'll have to look. I think that's
Yes.
some of the, yes.
There's a Facebook group too, right, Kate?
Yeah, there's a ton of you like search it. There's a lot of there's like Facebook groups of different teachers that use it, and there's a lot of like resources that you could find. Or I think in a lot of the way it's done in different activities and stuff, there's a lot of information. You just can't get like access to like the actual books that I believe, like the foundation, like all those
I
books and the
have,
study guides.
yeah.
But yeah,
I
if you have
have
a
them
book,
all, but I just, for parents, I just thought for parents who are, questioning or they want to know, you
Yeah.
know, if it's available online. That's what I was just wondering.
yeah, I think it's, I mean,
Yeah.
some stuff is, but not like,
Not all of it?
yeah,
Okay.
not like the majority of, like the actual, like the
Well, because
foundation volume
it's like a Bible,
yeah.
It's huge.
But if
You could throw it at somebody and hurt them.
anything that you're specifically wondering about, then the teacher can certainly access that.
Yeah.
And you know what, there's a and Kate, correct me if I'm misspeaking, but there's a section in Gold that where the teacher can add you as the parent. And so if they have something to share, whether it's a follow-up activity for home or some